What's going on, guys? Back at you with another video today. And well, before I get into it, I'm gonna do like everybody else does. Before I get into the video, let me go ahead and make the reminder. If you like the video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, something like that. Really helps out the channel. I'm gonna try to start making that remark in the beginning of my videos because towards the end I normally forget. Okay, today I'm going to review a knife that is going to be controversial for some, I'm sure, and we will get into that, and I will give you my thoughts and opinions on it. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. The Hilberg Norseman. If the name doesn't give it away, I'm sure the look of the knife does. You can tell what it is, dare I say, use the word copying. But I want to show you the packaging. This is how the knife arrives. Obviously, it's in a cardboard box with padding and all that. But this is the case the knife comes in. It's a hard plastic case. Little tabs on the front. Open these up. And of course, I've been using this knife. I'm just redoing this for the video. Boom. There we go. As you can see the card right here. Hilberg knives. On the back, it's got the specs. Hilberg knives, Hilberg Norseman, M390, blah, blah, blah. Just a little kind of overview on your knife. Set that out of the way. Comes with a little Torx bit tool in case you didn't have one already. And then the knife. Here it is. Get all this out of the way. Well, here it is. Here's the knife. Can you tell yet? Can you tell what this knife is meant to be? Okay, so this knife, and I'm going to try to say this as nicely as possible, it's a complete ripoff of the Grimsmo Norseman. You know that, I know that. Looks wise, it is exactly the same. The overall design is exactly the same. Now, I will say, if you can see the pivot design right there, the little helmet, it is not the same as Grimsmo. That is different. Now, it is very similar, but it's not the same. And you can see that logo right there on the pivot. You can also see it on the off side right there on the edge, on the end of the pocket clip. It's one of those, if you look at it, you can tell it's not the same. But if you were to just glance at it and didn't really know, you would think it was the same logo. It's not. Nowhere on this knife does it say Grimsmo Norseman. The website for Hilberg knives, they are very bold and upfront in the description of this knife. They say, this is not a Grimsmo knife. This is not a Grimsmo Norseman. This is a Hilberg knife. It's a Hilberg Norseman. So they're up front. They're not trying to sell you this knife saying, hey, this is a Grimsmo, and trying to kind of bait and switch people out necessarily. But to the uninitiated, to the person who wasn't paying attention, you could easily be fooled into thinking this was a Grimsmo because it looks almost exactly like it. But the company is not trying to trick people. They're not saying, hey, these are Grimsmo knives. You know, we just have them really cheap. That's not what they're doing. We'll kind of get into that later in the video as far as my thoughts on that. But first, I want to get into the knife. Spec-wise, it's the exact same as a Grimsmo Norseman for the most part. Overall length on this knife, open, is 8.6 inches. The blade is 3.6 inches or 3.7 inches. I kind of got convoluting data on that. 3.6 or 3.7 inches. Handle length is 5 inches overall, and the overall weight for the knife is 5.15 ounces. This is again, the same as the Grimsmo Norseman. It is a strange kind of recurve Tonto style blade. And it's a flipper, obviously, in case you didn't notice that. It is a flipper knife. And it is a titanium frame lock. And this is titanium. That's one thing I do want to clear up before I get into this video. Although this is, shall I say, an homage to the Grimsmo Norseman, this is still a very nice knife. These knives, this Hilberg Norseman, it's still now granted, it's not a handmade custom knife, but it is still a very high quality knife. This is not a cheap knockoff or a cheap replica. These knives still sell. I actually got on Hilberg Knives website before I filmed this video, and on their website, they are out of stock of these. But I did a search on eBay, and there is a seller on eBay who I assume is actually Hilberg Knives, who has multiple of these for sale on eBay right now for bids, and some of them are selling for $200. This is a good knife. Again, a lot of people will say, oh, that's just some cheap knockoff. It may be a knockoff of the Grimsmo, but this is still a premium quality knife. As far as the build quality and the materials used, this is still a premium knife. I guess I'll kind of get into that real quick. Again, basic specs, 8.6 overall, 3.6 inch blade, 5 inch handle, 5.15 ounces. The blade is the exact same as the Grimsmo. It's kind of that recurve Tonto with that weird kind of grind on it. And on this knife, again, I should say, I've never handled a Grimsmo Norseman. That's one of the reasons I have this knife. I've never handled a real Grimsmo Norseman, and I don't know anybody who has one for me to handle one. So I don't know how this grind texture is, but on this knife, it's very subtle. You can see it, obviously, and you can feel it, but it is just ever so slight. And in my experience, because I've had this knife now for about a month and a half, and I have been carrying it a good bit, this grinding on this blade that you see, it does not affect the cutting performance of this blade. They are not, again, it's not going to be, you can't really see any ridges, and that's because it's very subtly ground. It doesn't affect cutting performance. Those are very shallow. You can feel them, but they have not affected cutting performance, in my opinion, at all. But this is an M390 blade, and it is real M390. It's Bowler M390. It's an M390 blade, and it is a titanium frame lock. I'm going to say it's T6. I didn't look. I should have looked at that while I had it on there. But I'm pretty sure it's T6 titanium frame lock. M390 blade, titanium handle, and all the hardware, the thumb stud, the body screws, the pivot screw, they are all titanium. All the hardware on this knife is titanium. And these are obviously the thumb stud and the body screws. These are anodized. This on my knife is sort of a light blue anodizing. And much like a Grimsmo Norseman, the way Hilberg does theirs, it's sort of a random build. From all the ones I've seen on eBay, as you can see, the handle on this Hilberg that I have is that reverse honeycomb style pattern, and it is pretty deep. I mean, it's got some texture. It's not just a sort of etch. It is a milled handle, but much like the real Grimsmos, they come in a lot of different variations. They have a starburst style handle. They have the sort of diamond checkered. They have honeycomb. They have reverse honeycomb. There's a lot of different handle styles that they do. Again, much like the real thing, what this knife is, sort of copying. There's a lot of different ones, a lot of different handle styles, a lot of different colors, different colored hardware, different colored handles. I'm not sure if they do different colored blades. The only thing I've seen so far is the same as this, and I'm sorry, this knife is dirty. I should have cleaned it before I did this. But this is a sort of very light stonewash blade, sort of mild polished stonewash. It looks good. It's a good looking blade, but that's the only one I've seen. Now they may do blades, coated blades or something like that. I just haven't seen them, so I'm not sure. But this is a nice knife. I guess I'll kind of go over everything real quick. Again, you've seen the blade. It's a flipper. It's also got thumb studs. It works just fine either way. The action on this knife is really good. You probably can't see it because, like I said, this knife does have very tight tolerances. This knife does run on ceramic bearings, and they are very smooth. Flipper tab works beautifully, and the thumb stud works beautifully. I haven't had a misfire with this knife since I've owned it. And I mean, this is one of those knives that it's got a really good detent. Not an overly strong detent, but the detent is just right, and combined with the bearings, it is just, it's a really good action. This is just as good as some of my better, higher end ZT knives that I have. I mean, the action on this knife is really good. And there we go, for all you people, it has a lanyard hole. Oh, lanyard holes. You can see blade centering on this knife. It's perfect. It came like that, and it has stayed like that. I have taken this knife apart and cleaned it and done all that. It came clean when I got it, obviously, but the first thing I do whenever I get a new knife is I take the factory grease out, and of course I'm a big fan of knife pivot lube. I really like it. So that's what it's got in it right now. Again, M390 blade. The jimping is good. It's fairly deep, but it's not overly sharp. It gives a good purchase. Overall, the ergonomics on this knife are really good. I really like it. Again, I have extra large hands. I can get my whole hand on here just fine. No hot spots, nothing wrong. As far as the pocket clip, right hand tip up only. That is the only thing this knife is milled for. And again, it is a milled titanium pocket clip. To take the pocket clip off, I don't know if you can see, the screws are mounted inside. So they're reverse mounted from the inside out. So to take this pocket clip off, you have to take this whole knife apart, which again, I don't think that should be an issue for anybody. This pocket clip is only mounted, or is only drilled and tapped to mount in one spot, so I don't see why you'd ever need to take the pocket clip off anyways. It's not like you're going to be swapping it around. All the hardware on this knife is T8. The pivot and all the body screws are T8 screws, just for anybody who cares. The pivot is only one-sided. Again, it's adjustable on this side. And on this side, it is Hilberg Knives logo, and you can see it's sort of an oval shape, and that is recessed down into the handle so it will not spin, which is always nice. I hate a free spinning pivot on one side that you have to fight the entire time. Frame lock. It's a good frame lock, guys. Say frame lock, and as you can see right there, it's got an internal over travel stop. It's mounted to the inside of the frame lock. That way when you disengage, you can't overextend that frame lock. It's got that internal over travel stop on it right there. There's no milling internally on this knife. These scales are pretty thin, And this knife overall, again, it only weighs a hair over 5 ounces. I don't really think it needs milling on the inside. I don't see why that would be that big of an issue for anybody. But that's really all I need to say on this knife spec-wise. Again, it's a titanium frame lock, and if you can see it right there, it does have a stainless steel lock bar insert. Again, like any high quality knife should. That way it's not stainless. That way it's not stainless steel frame lock straight on a. That way it's not a titanium frame lock straight on a stainless blade. It does have a stainless steel insert there. That way it doesn't wear funny. Again, good touch. And again, you may see, just like the Grimsmo, this knife doesn't have the stop pin right here. It's an internal stop pin. So the stop pin is actually mounted about right here on the inside of the handle, and the stop pin rides inside the blade. So that's why there's no external stop pin there, because it's inside the blade. Again, I'm not going to take this knife apart for the sake of this video, just because I don't feel like doing it. But you can just take my word for everything. I'm going to try to show you, I don't know how well it will come through. Inside the knife right there, up on this top side, if you can see, I don't know how well it will show on camera, some writing all the way through here. You may be able to read it. But every one of these knives is milled on the inside for that specific knife. And this one, mine says, again, I know you can't probably read it by reading it from right here over to this way. Mine says Norseman, February 2020. And that is what is milled on the inside of the knife right there that you can make out, if you can make it out. It says Norseman, February 2020. And I have seen another one of these in real life, another Hilberg knife, and it was different. So that is per knife. That's not just some, a lot of replica knives, they'll put a serial number on it, but every one of them has the same serial number. This isn't one of those. Everything on this knife is unique. Mine's February 2020. And the other one of these I've seen, I'm wanting to say it was May of 2020, I think, something like that. But it was different. But it's got Norseman, February 2020 right here. And then on the reverse side, I don't know, if you look down in between the frame lock right there, you see that little milling line right there? You can just barely see it. I know you won't be able to see it, the lighting's not good enough, but they actually have this logo right here engraved on the inside. It's technically on this side. It's engraved on the inside of the handle right here, and it's pretty big. It's about that big. But that logo right there is engraved on the inside of the handle right here. It's a pretty classy knife. I mean, this wasn't just a throw something together. Like, there was a lot of milling work that went into this knife. It's easy to say that because this is really a ripoff of the Grimsmo, that it would be easy to say that this is just a cheap replica. This may be a replica. Again, I hesitate to say replica because they advertise the fact that they are not Grimsmo. But even though the design is exactly the same. But this is not a cheap knife. This is a nice knife. I guess because I haven't touched on that yet, pricing. The reason I got this knife, I have always been interested in the Grimsmo Norseman. Ever since they came out, I've been interested in it. Really, not really as a user knife, because I just have so many other knives that fall into a user knife category. There's no reason for me to go out and thump on a $1,000 knife. But just in general, I've always been really interested in them, but I just never could make myself pay what they were going for. I really didn't notice them until they were starting to get really hot, and at that point, prices already went up a lot. I know now, as of whatever, April 2021, prices have slowly started to go back down. I know for a while they were selling there, if you could find them, they were going for $1,200–$1,300. Now they started to drop back down some. I've seen some on Arizona Custom Knives now going for $700, $800, $900. For what that is, for what Grimsmo knives are, I still kind of think that's overpriced, but that's neither here nor there. But that's just the price point to me. I've had knives that cost that much. I've had knives that cost more than that. But where my mind state is now, $1,000, that's getting into gun money for me. As many of you know, or I may have mentioned before, I'm a gun guy. I do competitive shooting when I have time to. Still, I used to be real big into competitive shooting. Not so much anymore just because I don't have time to. But I'm really a gun guy at heart. And once you get into $1,000, I mean, that's gun money. I mean, you know, it's hard for me to justify spending $1,000. And again, that's your prerogative. I know there are guys who, you know, would happily spend $1,000 on a knife, but wouldn't spend more than $500 on a gun. And that's perfectly fine. It's just where your priorities lie. But in the end, I'm probably more of a gun guy than a knife guy. If I only had to pick one, it would probably be guns. So $1,000, that's getting into gun money for me. So that's the reason I never committed and bought a Grimsmo. But when I first saw these knives, and it's funny because I'd actually just seen them right before I ended up getting this one by chance. I saw these selling on eBay. I think I saw them originally at Post Online somewhere. I'm not sure where it was. But I saw them and I looked them up. And like I said, Hilberg Knives has a website, but they are always out of stock of these. And I got to looking and I found them on eBay. And at any given point, there would always be like 6 or 7 of them up for sale from the same seller. So it makes me wonder if it's actually Hilberg Knives just selling them on eBay. But it was the same seller, and they would always have 4, 5, or 6 of these up for auction at any given time. And most of the ones I were watching, they were always selling for between $150 to $220, $230, somewhere in there. And I was kind of interested in it. But, you know, it kind of got put on the back burner. I didn't really think anything else about it. Well, it was a couple weeks later, and a buddy of mine, he was grilling out, and he called me and wanted to know if I wanted to come over. So I said, yeah. I went over, and it's him and his brother. Him and his brother live together. They've got a house together. It's actually him, his girlfriend, and his brother. But his brother is a knife guy. And his brother's kind of like me. He's just kind of all over the place with his knives. He's kind of got a little bit of everything. And of course, whenever I talk to him, I always, you know, say, hey, what are you carrying today? You know, because he's like me. He's always carrying something different. Well, he was kind of showing me some of the ones he had picked up, and he had this knife. This is where I got this knife from. He said, I got this knife on eBay. He said, and again, he said, I thought it was a Grimsmo. And he said, I just didn't pay attention to it. And he said, the bid was expiring, and I think he said like 30 minutes or something, and the bid on it was only like $170. And so he said, I sat there and watched it, and he said he sniped it right at the last second, ended up getting this knife for like $185, I think. Which, you know, for the materials alone, I mean, you're getting almost a 4-inch blade M390 titanium frame lock. It's probably worth that by itself, not including, I mean, the actual level of quality and craftsmanship that went into this knife. Well, I said, let me see it. Because I'd always wanted a Norseman, a Grimsmo Norseman. I'd always wanted to handle one, but I never knew anybody who had one. But I'd seen these, and I thought, you know, for this to be such an oddball knife, what are the odds that he would have one of these? So I looked at it, and I kind of played with it the rest of the night. He let me, you know, just carry it around with me the rest of the night. I just flipped it and played with it, you know, whatever else. And it was later on in the night, and everybody was kind of getting ready to go, and I said, so are you planning on keeping that knife or selling it? And he said, well, I hadn't really thought about it yet. And I said, well, I'll tell you this. If you ever decide to sell it, let me know, because I will buy it from you. And again, I have a hard time justifying paying $1,000 for a Grimsmo. I know Grimsmo's an American company and all that. I just have a hard time justifying that much money for a knife at this point in my life because that's gun money. And he said, yeah, I'll let you know, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, I was talking to his brother out in the driveway. We stayed out in the driveway and talked for about 20 minutes after I walked out of the house. And his brother walked back out inside and said, oh, hey, you're still here. And he said, hell, I thought you'd gone. I said, no, I'm still here. And he said, well, actually, he said, do you want that knife? And I said, I mean, yeah, I'll take it. I mean, if you're going to sell it, I'll take it. And he said, what do you give me for it? And I said, well, you shoot me. What would you take for it? How about that? And he said, I'll take $120 for it. And I said, deal. And lucky, I always keep a little cash in my truck. So I got in my truck and I think I had 150 or 160 bucks cash in 20s. I gave him 120 and I walked out with it. He handed me the case and all that. And it's a good knife. Again, I am not a supporter of ripoffs. Like, if it is a straight rip-off knife, I don't want it. If this was Grimsmo's logo, and if when you open this knife, and right here, if it's a Hilberg Norseman, and all that, I do not support that. And granted, I know they are just completely ripping off Grimsmo's design with this knife. I know that, but they are not pretending to be Grimsmo. Again, I said, when you pull up their website, they have a giant, in bold letter, disclaimer saying, this is not a Grimsmo Norseman. We're not Grimsmo. We are Hilberg knives. This is not a Grimsmo. So they're not trying to pretend to be. They're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes and say, hey, we're something that we're not. And whether that's right or wrong, you can come to your own conclusion about. But I will say it does put this knife within reach of somebody who may not be able to handle a knife like this otherwise. Everybody isn't fortunate enough to be able to have $900, $1,000 to spend on a knife. Whether I do or don't, I still, $1,000, again, I'm starting to look at the other options. Do I really want to spend $1,000 on this knife when I could spend $1,000, on this or that? I mean, that's a new rifle or, a new aim point. I mean, that's a nice optic or a decent little rifle for $1,000. It makes this knife accessible to more people who wouldn't be able to get it otherwise. And again, this is basically a 1-for-1 replica of the Grimsmo Norseman. So if you're just somebody who has always wanted a Grimsmo, who just can't afford it or isn't willing to pay that much for it, now, again, your moral compass, that's your decision. But, I mean, this is a great knife. Again, I've been carrying it for a month and a half now, something like that. And I'm just completely impressed with the quality of this knife. I mean, the tolerances are tight. The materials are top notch. I mean, everything about it is just as nice as I could possibly want, I don't know. It's just, it really blew me away, the quality that this knife put out. Just everything about this knife is just, I've been really impressed with it. I think at the price point this knife comes in at, again, I paid $120 for mine, but that's because I bought it from a buddy. But again, I looked on eBay again before making this video, and there were 4 of these up for auction, and every one of them was under $200. And most of them are 24-hour auctions. So it's not like you had to sit there and wait weeks at a time to try to get one. The auctions are one-day auctions, and as soon as they end, new products get listed. Just get on eBay and search Hilberg Norseman. And I'll just throw that card back up here. Hilberg knives. Again, this is the Hilberg Norseman. on eBay. That's the only place I found them for sale. Again, they have a website. They're always out of stock. But there's always, every time I've looked, there's been 3, 4, 5 of them up for auction on eBay. And they're not hard to get. They don't have a ton of people bidding on them. I looked at one, I think last night, and the auction was ending in like an hour and a half or something like that. And it only had 4 bids on it. So it's not like there's just a bunch of competition for people bidding on these. So they're actually fairly easy to get. And they may have some by it now. I'm not sure. I didn't really look. But, you know, if you're okay with buying this knife for what it is and what it represents, I really think you'll be happy with it. I mean, this has just been a great knife. I mean, there's not really much bad I can say about it. Again, I know I'm going to get some hate for this knife. You know, they're ripping off, you know, Grimsmo, and I'm not denying that. I know this is an exact rip-off of the Grimsmo design, but they're not. This isn't a knife off AliExpress or DHgate, you know, that has, you know, Grimsmo written on it, you know, and comes in a fake Grimsmo package box and, you know, has a Grimsmo business card. That's not what this knife does. I mean, granted the design is a Grimsmo design, but they're completely upfront saying, hey, this isn't a Grimsmo. So it is what it is. I'll throw a few knives up here real quick for size comparison. Here's the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Can I get these lined up? Almost the exact same size. It's just a hair longer overall than the PM2. And then just to throw a big one in there, here's the Cold Steel 4MAX Scout. As you can see, the 4MAX Scout is substantially bigger, but that is a different beast of a knife in and of itself. Overall, it's a great knife. I mean, if you're okay with this knife, you know, the kind of stigma, I guess, with it, pick one up. I mean, it's a cool knife, and I don't see myself selling this knife. I mean, you know, would I buy another one? I mean, probably not, but it's not because the knife's not worth it. It's just because I've already got one. If I were to lose this knife tomorrow, I would very seriously consider buying another one. I mean, it's a good knife. It's a good knife. It's a cool knife, and it's a quality knife. Again, everything about this knife, the build quality, the tolerances on it, it's tight. The action is, I mean, just really, really smooth. It's just a really good overall knife. Anyways, again, guys, that's really all I got for this one. If you like the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let me know what you think about this knife down in the comments. If you've handled this knife, let me know what you think. If you've got an actual Grimsmo, hey, let me know what you think. Again, I've always wanted one. Is it worth the money? I mean, should I drop the money and spend one if I can find one? Let me know down in the comments. Anyway, guys, till next time, y'all be safe. Take it easy, and we'll see.